All right, everyone. We start off today, of course, talking about the California wildfires, a very regrettable situation, entirely capable of being amended, but nobody appears to be particularly concerned with trying to do so. Gavin Newsom, he's basically fiddling while the world burns, quite literally. Karen Bass decided she didn't even want to be there physically, so she's basically absconded. And all of these people should be prosecuted for their role, actually, in what's going on there. Now, the wildfire situation, to my knowledge, there's still effectively 0% containment. There are a number of wildfires that are burning. Some of them are beginning to literally eat away at Los Angeles. So that could get out of hand really quick. It'd be even more fire than Antifa could start, actually. Link in the description, archived, of course, talking about this. Of course, a bunch of DEI hires are responsible for the response, which is almost non-existent. So that's problem number one. But that's only one part of the problem. Problem number two goes back quite some time. I think it predates Gavin Newsom, actually. So-called environmentalist groups decided that the controlled burns that California used to do in order to get rid of underbrush and renew the forest, by the way, in the process, the controlled burns should be ended because it was bad for the climate. It would release CO2. It would, I mean, there's going to be smoke and stuff like that. It's a big problem. The problem is that, therefore, the underbrush has built up over time. And so when you get droughty conditions, especially with the Santa Ana wind, what happens? If somebody has a campfire and a fire begins, then you have a real big problem because you've got plenty of fresh brush to burn, and then the whole forest is gone. There are areas of California right now that literally look like hell. In fact, it reminded me of my overdose when I was overdosing, 15 years ago now, I guess. When I was in the ambulance, I looked at the side of the ambulance and I could see it turn transparent and I saw the whole city on fire. It looks basically like that. That's pretty much what I saw. If you look at some of the videos of this, it's phantasmagoric. A lot of people losing their homes, their entire livelihoods. Things at the edge of the city are just burning out of control. Trees are burning. Pretty much everything is burning. And it's going to be a little bit difficult, I think, for them to muster the resources to stop. By the way, Los Angeles is burning to the ground. We just sent another $100 billion to Ukraine or something like that. So it's really, really helpful. I'm not surprised that this happens. This is effectively nature's way of doing a controlled burn. The problem is that mankind was attempting to manage these resources. It's called conservationism. It was replaced by NIMBYist environmentalism and by the climate mob. And now you get this sort of thing going on, by the way, which is interesting. Yeah, we're protecting the climate by not burning things that are inevitably going to light on fire anyway. Because clearly man alone is responsible for the existence of fire. It never exists in nature at all. You never have droughty conditions and then a lightning strikes or something like that. That just never happens. It's NIMBYism. It's bullshit. It's not real environmentalism. It's certainly not conservationism, and it's definitely unhelpful. And then you have the DEI angle. When the people that are mainly tasked with responding to this sort of situation are completely inept and they were hired based on the color of their skin, not the content of their character, or based on what was dangling between their legs, the response might not be as beefy as if you hired the most qualified individual. It reminds me of a different disaster, actually. I happen to be in New Orleans at the moment. Newlands, doesn't really matter. Do you remember back during Hurricane Katrina when the FEMA director had been carpetbagged into his office by George W.? And by the way, this did tremendous damage, by the way, to the credibility of the administration. Basically made George W. a lame duck. I think it was 2006, if I remember correctly. It turned out that the FEMA director wasn't really hired based on his qualifications. He had effectively no managerial experience with regards to natural disasters. And FEMA is responsible in part for those things when they occur. I mean, you still have problems to this day within that particular bureau. But if you're going to maintain it at all, probably it should be led by somebody who's capable not just of managerial decisions, but also has some sort of competence with regards to disaster response in general. Maybe they were a fireman before, or firewoman, or firezier before, or something like that. So they know a little bit about disaster response. That didn't happen. As a result, tens of thousands of people were internally displaced in the United States. The levees failed. Half the city was flooded out of its asshole. And Bush, rightfully so, by the way, got an enormous amount of flack for this. Just wondering if the people of California are going to give enough flack to Gavin Newsom, to Karen Bass, and so forth. Probably not. It's a deep blue state. I realize some Californians have weighed in and said, well, not every part of the state's deep blue. I realize that. I realize that there are civilized areas within the state, mostly the rural ones, I think. But you got to understand, it's mainly controlled by a supermajority of extreme far-left Democrats, Gavin Newsom being one of them. He poses as a moderate, although I think most Californians on this channel would agree he seems a little bit further left than that. And so the disaster response so far has been an unmitigated disaster. The response is arguably as big of a disaster as the disaster itself. This is arguably as bad as a Hurricane Katrina moment. In fact, the lack of response here might sink any presidential ambitions that Gavin Newsom happened to have, which quite clearly he actually has. Basically, he's just sitting there twiddling his thumbs. Oh, yeah, part of Los Angeles is on fire. And there might be people deliberately starting fires at the moment, by the way. Saboteurs, quite literally. Could have foreign involvement for all we know. It's all right. Everything's fine. Sort of reminds me of the semi-canonical, we're not 100% sure, story of Nero, actually. Fiddling his Rome burns so that he can build his super palace. Could be one of those moments. Maybe Gavin Newsom just wanted a bigger home. That's about all. Peace out.